She was the Emperor's strongest weapon, until a human broke her mask and pride with one blow. The sky above Veros Prime was not blue. It hadn't been blue for centuries. Instead, a ceiling of rust and ash pressed down upon the world, choked by the smog of refineries that bled day and night. Steam hissed from towers shaped like broken bones, and every vent exhaled the stink of burnt metal and human sweat. Inside the capital's heart, the arena of ash stood like a scar on the city. Its iron walls trembled with the roar of crowds. Thousands gathered not for sport, but for spectacle, for punishment disguised as entertainment. Tonight, the Emperor had promised something memorable. Tonight, the workers would learn what happens when one of them speaks out. Arian Velas kept his head lowered as the guards shoved him forward, chains clattering at his wrists. He was no fighter, only a technician, a man who knew the hum of broken turbines better than the rhythm of combat. His hands were made for repairing coolant lines and rewiring control circuits, not holding weapons. Yet here he was, forced onto a path that ended in blood. The metal floor vibrated beneath his boots as the arena gates opened. Heat washed over him, rising from the ring below like the breath of some mechanical beast. The crowd's silence was worse than any jeer. It was anticipation sharpened into hunger. Thousands of pale faces leaned forward from the shadows, waiting to see him humiliated. "Step," barked the guard behind him. Arian swallowed, forcing his legs to move. His shirt clung damp to his back, soaked in nervous sweat. Each breath tasted of iron dust. He remembered the moment that had brought him here, his voice in the factory hall, speaking truths he should have swallowed. "The eastern vents are killing us," he had said. "The toxin levels are 3 times the limit." That single statement had sealed his fate. The Emperor didn't tolerate truth. He didn't waste rebels with executions. He broke them in public, so that every worker watching would feel the weight of futility. Now Arian stood in the center of the circular stage, the world's hatred and fear pressing in from all sides. The Emperor's voice crackled to life through colossal speakers, distorted by static but heavy with command. "Let this trial remind you, strength rules, weakness serves. Tonight a mechanic dares to challenge order. Tonight he will learn his place." A balcony of crystalline glass gleamed high above, where the Emperor reclined with his courtiers, their jeweled garments glowing in artificial light. To them, this was theater, not justice. Arian clenched his fists, chains rattling. He had expected soldiers, maybe even a beast from the genetic pits. But when the opposite gates groaned open, the figure that emerged froze the breath in his lungs. She stepped out of the smoke like a phantom carved from midnight. Serenia, the Emperor's enforcer. Her armor was not polished, but blackened, designed to swallow light. Every plate moved as if alive, mechanical sinews flexing with each step. The only glimmer was the mask, smooth, silver gray, featureless except for 2 narrow slits that revealed glowing amber eyes. Eyes that fixed on Arian with the precision of a predator. A ripple went through the crowd. Fear, awe, recognition. She was a myth in flesh, the blade of the throne, the masked executioner whispered of in workhouses. She held no sword, only a thin curved blade strapped to her thigh, as if to remind everyone that she didn't need more. The Emperor's voice boomed again. "Kneel, mechanic. If you kneel, perhaps she will let you crawl away alive." The crowd waited. Chains bit into Arian's wrists as the silence stretched. He could feel sweat sliding down his temple. Kneel? No. If he knelt now, there would be nothing left of him. He forced himself to lift his head. His voice cracked, but it carried. "You'll be surprised, Your Majesty." The crowd gasped. A ripple of disbelief surged through the arena, and in the faint glow behind the mask, Arian thought he saw it, just for a second, a flicker of curiosity in Serenia's amber eyes. She moved, not like a soldier, like liquid shadow. One heartbeat she was still. The next she had crossed half the arena, her blade slicing toward his throat. Arian dropped, rolling across the steel floor. The dagger hissed through the space where his neck had been, sparks spitting as it grazed metal. Instinct carried him. A life spent around machines had taught him how to read motion, how to know when a gear would catch, when a piston would fail, when rhythm would falter. Now his body obeyed those instincts. He wasn't faster than her, but he knew patterns. He scrambled up, eyes darting. Her armor flexed as she turned, each joint sealed tight, except one, at her neck where mobility demanded a gap. It was small, but it was there. His gaze flicked to the ground. Near the wall lay a snapped iron rod, jagged at one end, discarded from some past spectacle. He lunged, seized it, the rust rough against his palm. Serenya's blade flashed again. He ducked, sparks stinging his cheek. His heart thundered so loud he could barely hear the crowd's roar. She pressed him, relentless, each strike a dance of precision. Yield, she commanded through the mask's filters, her voice melodic yet cold. Arian's breath tore in his throat. You'll have to make me. Her eyes narrowed. She fainted, then spun, blade a silver arc. He caught it barely on the rod, the impact jarring through his arms. Pain flared in his wrists, but he held on. She advanced again. He stumbled back, until instinct screamed. The rhythm faltered. For one instant, her neck joint opened wider as she pivoted. Arian swung with every ounce of desperation. The rod connected. A ringing crack split the air like a bell. Serenya's body convulsed, armor shuddering. The crowd went dead silent. For one terrible second, she stood frozen, then crumpled, collapsing in a tangle of limbs. Her dagger skittered away, clattering to the edge of the arena. Arian stood above her, chest heaving, rod trembling in his grip. The silence deepened until it felt like the world had stopped breathing. He had done the impossible. A mechanic had felled the Emperor's weapon. The mask tilted, amber eyes flickering, but she did not rise. From above, the Emperor's voice shattered the stillness, ragged with fury. Chain him, strip her, throw her to the waste pits. Guards surged through the gates. Arian dropped the rod as shackles bit into his wrists. Cold iron closed around him, dragging him toward a darkness he did not know. And yet, even as they pulled him away, his gaze lingered on the fallen enforcer. For a moment, just a moment, her hand twitched as though she tried to reach out toward him. Then the crowd roared again, drowning everything in thunder. That night, whispers spread through the city faster than the smog. A mechanic had struck down the Emperor's mask, and for the first time in years, workers in their choking barracks dared to wonder if one man could defy the impossible, what else might be broken? Darkness pressed close around Arian. The cell was little more than a cube of stone and steel, damp air dripping from rusted pipes overhead. Chains bit into his wrists where they were fastened to the wall, their cold weight dragging his shoulders into a perpetual ache. The silence here was not silence. It was punctuated by the distant groans of machinery, the hiss of steam, and the muffled cries of others locked deeper in the Emperor's dungeon. He leaned back against the wall, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. His body screamed with exhaustion from the fight, muscles trembling from the weight of adrenaline's fading fire. The image replayed in his mind, the enforcer's body crumpling, the shock in the crowd, the amber eyes that had flickered once before the guards dragged him away. And her hand, a twitch, small and quick, like a spark trying to leap from cold iron. Arian shook the thought away. He was a dead man, nothing more. Hours, or perhaps days, bled into each other. In the dungeon, time was stripped of meaning. Guards came only to deliver food, a metal tray of tasteless nutrient paste shoved through a hatch. He ate without appetite, his mind gnawed by questions. Why hadn't they killed him? Why this slow decay instead of execution? The answer came one evening with the sound of boots and the rattle of chains. The cell door groaned open. A shaft of light cut through the gloom, blinding him. 2 guards stepped in, flanking a third figure. She moved with stiffness, her wrist bound, her stride uneven as though every step was pain. The enforcer. Even without her black armor, Arian recognized her instantly. The same tall, lithe frame, the same silver mask hiding her features, though dented now where his strike had landed. She was dressed in a plain prisoner's bodysuit, her movements slower but still precise, every gesture carrying the ghost of training. The guards chained her to the opposite wall, then left without a word. The cell door slammed shut, plunging them back into gloom. For a long while there was only silence. Finally Arian spoke, voice hoarse. "I thought they threw you to the waste pits." Her head tilted slightly. The mask's filter gave her voice that strange melodic distortion. "They did. I crawled out." He frowned. "Why bring you here then?" A soft metallic laugh. "To remind me I'm broken. To remind you that you're nothing." Arian stared across the cell. Her amber eyes glowed faintly in the dark, watching him without blinking. She was injured. He could see the faint tremor in her hands, the stiffness of her posture, but still dangerous. He swallowed. "You tried to kill me, twice." "You embarrassed me," she replied simply. "Before the Emperor, before all of them. My life ended the moment your strike landed." Arian leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. "If it ended, then why are you still here?" Silence stretched again, heavy as chains. The next day, or what he thought was the next, guards dragged Arian from the cell, shackled him through corridors lit by flickering lamps. He was forced into a work detail, repairing broken vents in the prison's underbelly. It was cruel irony. Even as a prisoner, he was still used for his skills. The Empire did not waste labor when there was work to be done. As he worked, he noticed things: weak spots in the walls, faulty seals, forgotten maintenance shafts covered by grates. He memorized each one, filing them away like blueprints etched into his mind. When he was dragged back to the cell, bruised and filthy, she was waiting, still chained, still watching. "You map the walls when you walk," she said quietly. He froze. "How would you know?" "I was trained to read people. I see how your eyes shift. Every corner, every crack, you take it in." Arian exhaled slowly. She wasn't wrong. "You're planning to escape," she continued. He gave a bitter laugh. "Everyone here dreams of escaping, doesn't make it possible." Her amber eyes glimmered in the half-light. "You'll try, and when you do, you'll need me." Arian turned to her sharply. "Need you? You'd slit my throat the second I turned my back." She tilted her head, voice soft. "Perhaps, but I know the patrol patterns, the security codes, the ways they hunt. Without me, you won't last an hour outside these walls." The night he couldn't sleep. He turned the thought over and over in his mind. She was a weapon of the Empire, designed to kill. But she was also chained in the same filth as him, marked as disposable. And he remembered her hand twitching in the arena, reaching. Why? The question burned inside him. The chance came 3 nights later. The guards were careless, perhaps lazy, perhaps overconfident. When they shoved Arian's food tray through the hatch, something extra clattered inside. A thin strip of metal, no longer than a finger, hidden beneath the gray paste. His heart lurched. Someone had slipped it to him. A tool. A lockpick. He glanced toward her. She was watching, of course. She always watched. Carefully, he palmed the strip, concealing it as he ate. When the guards left, he leaned against the chains, working at the cuffs. Sweat beaded on his brow as the makeshift pick scraped against the lock. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, click. The shackle on his right wrist snapped open. For a moment, he just sat there, stunned by the weight of sudden freedom. Then he heard her voice. "Do mine." Arian turned. She had shifted closer, extending her bound wrists. The faintest tremor ran through her body, but her eyes were steady. "Why would I free you?" he whispered. "Because you won't make it alone." Her tone was not pleading. It was matter of fact, as if she stated a law of physics. Arian hesitated, breath quick in his throat. Logic screamed at him to leave her. Emotion whispered of the risk, but something deeper, something stubborn, remembered the hand that had twitched, the spark in her eyes when he defied the Emperor. He crawled across the floor, lifted the strip of metal, and began to work on her chains. The lock clicked open. For the first time, her hands were free. She rubbed her wrists, the faintest sound of relief escaping her. Then her eyes met his, unreadable behind the mask. "You're a fool," she said. Arian managed a tired smile. "Maybe, but at least I'm a free fool." Her amber eyes lingered on him, and for the first time, she didn't correct him. Their escape was not dramatic at first. It was slow, careful, shaped by silence. Arian guided them through maintenance shafts he had memorized, crawling through rusted tunnels, the stench of oil and mold choking the air. Serenia moved behind him like shadow, even wounded, her training keeping her steps noiseless. More than once they froze as patrols passed, guards laughing, their boots echoing. Serenia's hand once brushed his shoulder as she pulled him into deeper shadow, holding him still as a searchlight swept by. The contact was brief, almost accidental, but the warmth of it lingered long after. At last they reached a grated hatch. Beyond it lay the city's industrial underbelly, a maze of pipes and forgotten ruins. Freedom, of a sort. Arian pried the grate loose. As it clattered softly to the ground, Serenia spoke again. "You had the chance to run alone. Why risk me?" He paused, meeting her gaze. Her mask reflected his face, pale in the gloom. "Because," he hesitated, then found the words, "because you deserve more than being someone's weapon." For the first time, she did not answer. But as they slipped into the darkness of the Undercity, her silence felt less like refusal and more like the first fracture in the wall between them. That night, hidden in the ruins of a collapsed factory, they shared water scavenged from a dripping pipe. Serenia sat across from him, mask tilted toward the dying glow of a chemical lantern. Arian studied her in the quiet, the way she drank slowly, carefully, as though savoring each drop, the way her shoulders eased slightly when the chains no longer bound them. He didn't know who she was beneath that mask, but for the first time he wanted to. And in the flicker of her amber eyes, he wondered if she wanted him to. The Undercity of Veros Prime did not sleep. It breathed, it groaned, it whispered. Pipes stretched like the veins of some buried giant, pumping steam and waste through forgotten tunnels. Entire factories lay half-collapsed, their skeletal frames reaching upwards as though begging the choking sky for release. Within these ruins lived those the Empire had discarded, workers too broken to labor, children too thin to serve, the shadows of a machine that never stopped turning. It was here that Arian and Serenia found refuge. They crouched within the shell of an abandoned refinery, its windows shattered, its walls blackened by old fire. The floor was littered with debris, coils of wire, shattered glass, rusted machinery left to rot. Through gaps in the roof, the orange haze of the sky bled down like poisoned sunlight. Arian leaned against a rusted beam, chest heaving after hours of crawling through ducts and tunnels. His arms still ached from forcing open sealed grates, and his throat burned with thirst. He tilted the container they had scavenged, catching the last drops of water on his tongue. Across from him, Serenia sat motionless, mask reflecting the dull light. He hated that mask. Not because it was frightening, though it was, but because it concealed her. Her voice always filtered through it, melodic yet distorted, never quite human. Her eyes glowed faintly behind the narrow slits, watching, unreadable. Arian shifted, breaking the silence. "You don't need to wear it anymore. We're not in the arena." Her head turned toward him. For a heartbeat, the glow of her eyes locked onto his. Then softly, through the mask, "You think this is armor. It isn't." Arian frowned. "Then what is it?" Serenia lifted a gloved hand, fingertips brushing the side of the mask as though it were a part of her flesh. "It's who I am." They let the words hang between them. Outside, distant voices echoed. Workers of the Undercity, muttering around fires, trading scraps. The Empire rarely came down here. Too dangerous. Too forgotten. Arian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You weren't born with it. A pause, then a whisper. No. For the first time, her tone cracked, as if some weight pressed on it. Arian felt the change. He didn't push, not yet. He had learned with machines that sometimes forcing only caused more damage. You waited. You listened. You looked for the weakness in the gear. At length, Serenia continued. I was 9. Arian blinked. 9? She nodded slightly. The day they put it on me, they said it would make me perfect, that I would never be distracted, never hesitate, that I would become the Emperor's finest weapon. Her hand dropped from the mask. It wasn't just a mask, it was a prison. Neural inhibitors laced through the lining, connected directly to the brainstem. Memories suppressed, emotions filtered. Everything I was stripped away until only function remained. Arian felt a cold weight settle in his gut. He stared at her, suddenly seeing not a faceless executioner, but a child stolen, reshaped into a blade. What do you remember? He asked softly. She was silent a long while. Then, fragments. A voice. My mother's, I think. A light that wasn't this poisoned sky. Laughter, though I don't know whose. They're broken pieces, nothing more. Her eyes met his. But when you struck me, in the arena, when the mask cracked, something changed. The inhibitors glitched. Memories started leaking through. She looked away, voice roughening. It terrifies me to feel, to remember, to doubt. I was not made for doubt. Arian's throat tightened. He thought of his own brother, lost to one of the Emperor's tests. How the Empire twisted lives into tools. He took a slow breath. You're not a tool. You're not what they made you. Her laugh was hollow, metallic. That's what you tell yourself to feel better about sparing me. No. He shook his head firmly. That's what I tell you because it's true. She tilted her head, studying him as though she could peel away the surface and see the machinery beneath. Finally, she murmured, You're strange, mechanic. You strike me down, then free me. You see a weapon and you tell it it's a person. Arian met her gaze. Not a weapon, a prisoner, same as me. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Outside, the undercity hummed with distant engines. Somewhere, a child coughed, the sound thin and ragged. Serenia shifted. Her hand rose slowly toward the mask's clasp. For a moment, Arian's breath caught. Was she about to remove it? But her fingers froze halfway, trembled, then dropped back to her side. Not yet, she whispered. Arian exhaled, hiding his disappointment. Then at least tell me your name, your real name. Another long pause. Finally, Serenia. He repeated it quietly. Serenia. For the first time, the mask dipped as though she bowed her head. That night, they lay in silence among the ruins, back to back for warmth. Sleep was thin, haunted by dreams of chains and crowds. Yet when Arian stirred, half waking, he felt it, the faintest brush of her hand against his arm, like she had reached out unconsciously in her sleep. He didn't move. He just let it rest there. The days that followed blurred into survival. They scavenged food from refuse piles, traded with undercity outcasts for scraps of water. Arian repaired broken filters, coaxing machines into giving them a little more air, a little more time. Serenia guarded him, her senses razor sharp, always scanning shadows for danger. And slowly, cautiously, fragments of trust grew. One evening, as Arian worked to fix a shattered vent, Serenia crouched nearby, watching. You move like a fighter, she said suddenly. He barked a laugh. I'm no fighter, but you anticipate. You read movements. I read machines, he replied, tightening a bolt. People aren't so different. Everything has a rhythm. You just have to listen for when it falters. She considered this. That's how you struck me. You saw the flaw, He froze. I didn't mean... No, she interrupted. It saved me. Without it, I would still be a mask, a weapon, nothing more. Her voice lowered. You broke me, mechanic, and in breaking me, you set me free. That night, by the dim flicker of a stolen lantern, she finally touched the clasp of her mask again. This time, she did not stop. The metal hissed as the seals disengaged. Slowly, carefully, she lifted it away. Arian's breath caught. Her face was angular, almost severe, but beautiful in its symmetry, a face sculpted by design as much as by nature. A jagged scar ran from her jaw to her collar, the mark of his strike. Her skin, faintly luminescent blue, glowed in the lantern light, but it was her eyes that rooted him. Amber, fierce, but no longer just predatory. There was vulnerability there. Fear, defiance. I was told, she whispered, holding the mask in her hands, that without this, I would be nothing, that no one would protect me, that no one would see me. Her eyes lifted to his. Is that true? Arian's heart hammered. He stepped closer, slowly, careful not to startle her. He reached out, not to touch her face, but to set his hand gently over hers, steadying the mask she clutched like a lifeline. No, he said softly. I see you. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Then her fingers loosened around the mask, letting it rest on the floor between them. The undercity outside still reeked of smoke and rust. The Empire still reigned above, cruel and unyielding. But within that abandoned factory, something fragile and dangerous had begun. A spark. Not yet trust, not yet love, but the first whisper of both. The undercity could never stay quiet for long. Even as Arian and Serenia carved out fragile moments of rest among broken machines and leaking vents, the Empire's shadow hunted them. Patrols swept deeper into the ruins with each passing night, floodlights slicing through smoke, drones buzzing like mechanical hornets. And rumors spread. Workers whispered of the mechanic who struck down the Emperor's mask. They whispered of the enforcer who vanished with him. Those whispers grew into sparks, and sparks into fire. The Empire noticed. On the 7th day, they found themselves cornered. Arian had just finished patching a cracked pipeline when Serenia stiffened, head tilting, senses alert. A second later, he heard it too. Boots, heavy, coordinated. Not the scattered stomp of lazy guards, but the measured rhythm of trained soldiers. Special unit, Serenia murmured. Her hand slipped instinctively to her side, where no weapon hung. Only then did Arian see the flicker in her eyes. Warriors calm overlaying a threat of unease. They ducked into the carcass of an abandoned smelting plant. The air here stank of rust and chemical residue, shadows pooling thick around rusted vats. Arian crouched behind a corroded coolant tank. Serenia pressed close beside him. Through a jagged crack, he glimpsed them. 6 figures sweeping the plant in formation, armor marked with the Emperor's insignia. Bounty hunters, former Imperial Special Forces. Serenia's voice was low, urgent. Heavy weapons, military-grade scanners. They're not here for me. The bounty on you is triple mine now. Arian's mouth went dry. Triple? Her eyes flicked toward him, calculating. In the glow of the scanner sweeps, he saw it. That flicker of conflict, cold math, survival instinct. For a heartbeat, the air between them changed. This is where our alliance ends, Serenia said flatly. The words struck harder than any blow. Arian stared at her, heart hammering, waiting for her to move, toward him, away from him he didn't know. She didn't move, not yet. The hunters closed in, boots crunching over debris. The glow of their visors painted the walls with red light. Arian forced his voice steady. If you're going to hand me over, then do it. I won't stop you. He expected her blade at his throat. Instead, there was silence. The kind of silence that stretched, heavy with choice. Finally, her hand moved. Not to a weapon, but to his arm. She pulled him close, her whisper sharp as a blade. There's a maintenance shaft behind us. Too small for their gear. It leads to the purification ducts. Go. Arian blinked. What about you? I'll buy you time. Her grip tightened, then released. Go! Before he could argue, she was already moving, slipping from cover with the ghost-like grace that once made her the Emperor's blade. The clash erupted in an instant. Energy fire seared the air, throwing jagged shadows across the plant. Serenia darted between vats, disarming one hunter with a twist, slamming another into a wall with raw precision. For a heartbeat, Arian froze, watching not a mask, not a weapon, but a woman fighting like hell against the machine that once owned her. Then instinct screamed. He turned and crawled into the shaft she'd pointed out, metal scraping his shoulders as he squeezed through. Behind him, the battle raged, the thunder of gunfire mixing with shouts of pain. He didn't look back, couldn't. The shaft spat him out into the labyrinth of ducts beneath the purification sector. He stumbled, breath ragged, heart still pounding. For hours he moved through the undercity, every sound a threat, every shadow a hunter. By the time he reached the rendezvous point they had marked, a hollowed storage chamber lit only by a leaking glow tube, he had convinced himself she was gone. She wasn't. Serenia staggered in hours later, blood streaking her arm, her bodysuit torn. She collapsed against the wall, gasping. Arian caught her before she hit the ground. You came back, he whispered. He managed a grim smile. Of course I did. He pressed a rag to the wound on her arm, hands trembling. Why? For once her voice was quiet, almost human. Because a weapon should choose who it serves. And I choose, not them. They stayed hidden for 2 days, nursing wounds, rationing water. Arian's makeshift bandages held, and Serenia's recovery was faster than he expected, her body engineered for resilience. But there was more in her eyes now, not the predator's glow of calculation, but something heavier, reflection. On the second night, as the hum of distant drones passed overhead, Arian asked the question that had burned in him since the battle. You could have traded me, saved yourself. Why didn't you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lifted her hand, fingertips brushing the scar on her neck. The scar from his strike in the arena. Because you already broke me, she said softly. And for the first time, I wanted to decide how to stay broken. The words stayed with him. They traveled deeper into the undercity, moving from ruin to ruin, each step haunted by hunters. And though danger pressed close, something else grew between them. Fragile, dangerous, undeniable. One night, beneath the skeleton of a collapsed overpass, Arian asked what had gnawed at him since the moment he saw her mask crack. Why do you still wear it? They sat close to a small fire of burning scrap, shadows flickering across her silver faceplate. For a long time, she didn't answer. Then her hand rose, tracing the mask's edge. It's not just a mask, she whispered. It's an identity. Without it, she trailed off. Arian finished for her. Without it, you'd be just a person. Her eyes turned to him, amber burning with something unreadable. Is that what you think I am? A person? What else would you be? Her silence was long, heavy. Finally, a weapon. A tool. That's what they made me. That's what I made myself. Arian held her gaze. You're more now than you ever were with them. For a moment, her eyes softened. Then, like shutters slamming closed, the mask tilted away. But the silence between them was different this time. Less denial, more fear. The Empire, however, had no fear. It prepared its next spectacle. Word spread through the undercity, a new arena event was coming. Not prisoners, not rebels, something worse. The Emperor had commissioned a beast from the genetic pits, bred for terror. A Serax beast, half predator, half machine. The whispers carried dread. It was said to move faster than sight, to smell fear, to tear armored men apart like paper. And it would be unleashed for the Emperor's amusement. When Arian and Serenia heard, their blood ran cold. Why bring a beast here? Arian asked as they crouched in the shadows of a ruined factory. Serenya's voice was tight. Not for amusement, for fear. The Emperor knows whispers spread. He wants to remind the people that rebellion means slaughter. Arian clenched his fists. Then we have to stop it. Her gaze flicked to him, unreadable. We? Yes, his jaw set. If he wants to use fear, we'll turn it against him. For the first time, a flicker of something like a smile touched her lips. But it didn't last. Her body stiffened suddenly, head tilting toward the shadows. We're not alone. The attack came like lightning. A blur of black armor, silent as shadow, slamming into Serenya with the force of a storm. They crashed to the ground, the figure rising with a blade at her throat. Arian froze. This was no common soldier. The mask of the attacker gleamed silver, but with intricate markings of rank. His movements were precise, his stance perfect. And when he spoke, his voice carried authority. Unit KX-137, he said, his filtered voice sharp. Your neural signature is unmistakable. Serenya went still. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Commander Vare. Arian's pulse spiked. You know him? Her eyes, wide with something he had never seen before. Fear. He trained me. Vare's hand tightened on the blade. You were my finest creation. Imagine my disappointment when I heard you'd been broken by a mechanic. Arian surged forward, but Serenya's arms shot out, blocking him. Her voice trembled, but held. This isn't his fight. Vare tilted his head. It is precisely his fight. You think you can abandon what you were made to be? That mask defines you. Without it, you're nothing. Return now. The Emperor will forgive. I can fix what's been corrupted. For a heartbeat, Serenya was silent. Arian saw it, the pull of old chains, the weight of conditioning. Then slowly she rose to her feet, standing tall despite the blade at her throat. You're wrong, she said, her voice steadying. You gave me the tools to see weakness, and I finally saw yours, the Empire itself. Her hands shot up, twisting the blade away, momentum flowing like water. The fight erupted, steel on steel, strike for strike. Arian watched in awe and terror. They were mirrors of each other, every move anticipated, every counter matched. But Serenya moved differently now, not just with training, with choice, with unpredictability. When the opening came, it was with startling suddenness. She used a grappling maneuver Arian had once shown her, a trick no enforcer would ever know. She flipped Vare, slamming him into the ground with bone-jarring force. Her blade pressed to his throat. You fight like a human, he spat. Her amber eyes burned. No, I fight like myself. For a moment, Arian thought she would kill him. Instead, she lowered the blade. I could free you, she whispered. Remove your inhibitors. Give you choice. Fear flickered across Vare's face, the first crack in his mask. I would rather die. Serenya stood. Then stay a weapon. I won't. She turned away, joining Arian. Behind them, Vare struggled to his knees, hatred burning in his gaze. He'll come for us, Arian murmured. No, she said quietly. He won't report failure. His pride won't allow it. He'll chase us himself. As they vanished into the shadows, Arian realized what had just happened. Serenya hadn't only defeated her mentor, she had rejected everything he represented. The mask no longer defined her, and for the first time he believed she might truly be free. The night of spectacle arrived like a wound reopening. Oryx 9's skies burned red as smoke belched from towers, carrying the metallic stink of industry and blood. All roads in the capital led to the colossal arena, its jagged spires clawing upward, lit with floodlights that bathed the crowd in an eerie glow. Thousands poured in, soldiers, nobles, overseers, their jeweled robes shining with ill-gotten wealth. At the very top, high within a crystalline balcony, the Emperor reclined on his throne of steel and glass. His face stretched into a smile that never touched his eyes. He had promised his people a demonstration unlike any before, a new predator, engineered to embody the Empire's dominion. a monster to remind all that rebellion meant despair. And in the bowels beneath that arena, among cages of trembling prisoners, Arian and Serenia waited. They had come disguised. Ragged clothes, dirt smeared across their faces, identity chips stolen from the dead to fool cursory scans. The guards shoved them with the same disinterest they gave every other condemned soul. No one looked closely. No one suspected. "They don't see us," Serenia whispered as they were herded into a holding cell with others. Broken rebels, captured workers, dissidents too loud to ignore. "They never have." Arian's jaw clenched. His eyes scanned the room, already mapping escape routes, the angles of vents, the pattern of guards. But in his chest, his heart hammered with a different rhythm. Tonight, everything ended. Or began. The growl came first, low, bone deep, a vibration in the floor that silenced the prisoners and even made the guards glance uneasily at the reinforced cage across the corridor. The Syrinx beast. In the dim light, Arian glimpsed it. Massive shoulders rippling with muscle and steel, fur shimmering with iridescent scales, eyes burning with unnatural hunger. Chains thicker than a man's arm clamped its limbs, and still it strained, snarling. "Genetic and mechanical hybrid," Serenia murmured, voice taut. "Designed for one purpose, slaughter." Arian swallowed hard. "Then we'll turn it against him." Her eyes flicked to him, searching, then softened just slightly. She gave the smallest nod. When night fell, the arena blazed with artificial light. Drones hovered overhead, lenses whirring as they broadcast the spectacle across every Imperial world. The prisoners were driven onto the arena floor, shoved into the harsh glow. Arian and Serenia moved with them, heads bowed, hearts hammering. Above them, the stands thundered with anticipation. Then the Emperor appeared. His armor gleamed gold and silver, ceremonial yet etched with scars of old augmentations. His voice boomed through the amplifiers, each word rolling like thunder. "Tonight we remind the galaxy, strength rules, weakness serves. Behold, our newest triumph, the apex predator, reborn through Imperial will." The crowd roared. The cage rose from the floor on hydraulic lifts, metal groaning. Inside, the Syrinx beast shifted, eyes blazing, breath steaming like smoke from a furnace. The chains fell away. The monster roared. The sound tore through the arena, rattling steel, shivering bone. Prisoners screamed, scattering in terror. The crowd howled its approval. And in that chaos, Arian and Serenia moved. It happened in seconds. A signal, a nod, and Serenia lunged, not at the beast but at the nearest guard. Her stolen chains snapped like a whip, sending him crashing into the wall. Arian snatched the fallen guard's rifle, firing bursts that shattered the nearest drone's camera. The crowd screamed, not in joy, but in confusion. "Now!" Serenia shouted, eyes blazing. Arian pulled the small device from his sleeve, the hacked chip smuggled through hours earlier by sympathetic workers. He slammed it into the nearest console. Sparks spat. For 3 seconds, the energy shields protecting the Emperor's balcony flickered, just long enough for Serenia to move. He ran, up the ornate supports, body moving with inhuman grace, vaulting higher and higher while drones struggled to track her. The Emperor's smile faltered as his guards rushed to intercept. Below, the Syrinx beast scented freedom. Its massive head swung toward the balcony, toward the Emperor. Chaos erupted. The crowd surged, guards firing wildly, prisoners scattering in desperate survival. Arian ducked a blast, returning fire, every instinct screaming to keep moving. The air was thick with smoke, screams, the thunder of claws against steel. High above, Serenia vaulted onto the Emperor's platform. She landed with a predator's grace, blade in hand, facing the man who had stolen her childhood. The Emperor did not cower. He smiled almost warmly. "The mechanic and the maskless. How far you've come." Arian scrambled up the lower steps, fighting through guards, until he burst onto the platform, chest heaving. He raised his weapon, breath ragged. "Your reign ends tonight," the Emperor laughed, a sound rich, cruel, but not without strange sincerity. Do you think you are the first? Once I too was a worker. I fought, I dreamed, I tried to break the system, and I learned the truth. Ideology is a luxury. Power is the only reality. His eyes flicked to Serenia. You were my finest weapon. My successor, perhaps. With you and the mechanic, I could reshape the empire into something lasting. Think of the suffering you could prevent if you joined me instead of fighting. For a moment, silence held. The words hung like poison, tempting, insidious. And Arian felt it, that terrible, seductive pull. He could see it, could imagine a world where they used power to bend the empire from within. But Serenia's eyes burned. She stepped closer, blade steady. You made me a weapon, she whispered, but you forgot one thing. The Emperor's smile wavered. And what is that? I choose who I am. With a sudden strike, she swept his legs, driving him toward the railing. Arian surged forward, shoulders slamming into the Emperor's chest. The Emperor toppled over the edge, and below the Syrinx beast leapt. The sound was nightmare. The Emperor's scream cut short in a wet crack as claws tore, bones shattered. The beast ripped into him with primal fury, his blood staining the arena floor. The crowd went silent. Thousands of nobles, generals, overseers, frozen, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The drones hovered uncertainly, their programming faltering at the impossibility of the scene. Then the silence shattered. Prisoners screamed, guards surged, but among them other voices rose, not in terror but in defiance. Workers hidden among the condemned drew concealed blades, sabotaged drones, broadcast signals. The resistance ignited. Arian seized a fallen amplifier, rerouting its signal. His voice thundered through the arena, carried on hijacked drones to every corner of Oryx 9. We don't want the throne, we want to end thrones. No one was born to kneel. His words echoed across the city, across the planet, across every smuggled receiver on 1,000 worlds. The crowd broke, some fled, others fought. But the spell of the empire cracked, and cracks became collapse. Hours blurred in fire and blood. The uprising surged across Oryx 9, workers dropping tools, seizing weapons, turning machines into barricades. Overseers fell, drones reprogrammed, command chains shattered. On the prison moons, slaves rose. On factory stations, technicians sabotaged imperial fleets. Across the empire, the broadcast spread, unstoppable. The Emperor's end replayed again and again, the tyrant devoured by his own beast. It was not just rebellion, it was contagion. When the fires dimmed and dawn bled weakly through the poisoned sky, Arian and Serenia stood together in the ruins of the arena. The beast lay slain, fell by resistance fire once its purpose was done. Around them, workers gathered, exhausted, bloodied, but free. Arian's hands trembled as he lowered the rifle. Serenia's mask lay shattered at her feet, its silver fragments catching the light. She no longer needed it. She turned to him, face bare, amber eyes fierce but human now. What now? She asked. Arian looked out over the city, the rising smoke, the broken chains, the people stirring with hope. He felt the weight of their eyes, their expectations. He shook his head. Not a throne, not another tyrant, something better, something ours. And so it began. They didn't carve statues of themselves. They didn't seize crowns. Instead, they built communities, councils, networks across worlds. A symbol spread among them, a rusted pipe crossed with a broken mask, not of power, but of defiance. The mechanic who struck down the Emperor's blade, the enforcer who chose to be more than a weapon. Together they lit a fire that empire could never extinguish. And across the galaxy, whispers grew louder than chains. No one was born to kneel. The end of story.